Some of you watching this video might be familiar with the boss mod known as Bosses of Mass Destruction, but did you know that it has an older mod that adds in more content to 1.12.2? Bosses of Mass Destruction is a boss mod that adds in 4 new bosses to the later versions of Fabric, and each boss comes with its unique fighting style to enhance your progression. However, 2 of the models, the Gauntlet and the Monolith, originated from a 1.12.2 mod made by the same creator that is by far the most underrated mod in possibly the history of Minecraft modding. Its older brother of a mod comes with around 4 new dimensions, a ton of weapons and armor, guns and wizardry, and possibly the best modded storyline that successfully captivates the user into doing tasks with Herobrine to defeat the malice in the world. This is Into the Maelstrom. When you first play this mod, at first it might seem as if nothing happened. You play your world as usual, and you might even explore a little bit around the surrounding area and just notice that there's not really much change. However, there's a text that appears in purple within your chat box. In its malicious purpley text, it has claimed that something has entered the world. And as this message appears, a massive tower appears. It is a Maelstrom monolith, the same monolith that appears within the Bosses of Mass Destruction's mod. As this tower continues to exist in your world, it starts shooting out little projectiles of malice, and this results into a bit of a precarious situation. When it starts to corrupt your world with all these different projectiles, Maelstrom troops will start to spawn in and starts executing all mobs within the nearby vicinity. Let's go over the boss. The Monolith has a variety of different attacks, but most importantly, he has 2 phases. The first phase, he has fireballs that rain down from the sky, and you'll have like a red circle to indicate where they land. A bit of a, I guess, AoE type attack where it will have like an almighty push effect when you're near the monolith at that time, which gets triggered of course if you do approach the monolith and start using your sword or axe to start attacking it. Finally, he also summons in Maelstrom troops such as the Maelstrom Scout to help slow your progress a little bit and to help regen health. Speaking of regeneration, this boss has insane defense and regeneration, not to mention 600 health, so of course, it is going to be a bit difficult to kill this boss. My most recommended strategy for approaching this boss is to make splash potion of poison, because that will mitigate the effects of the regeneration. Now, watching the fights, as you see on the screen right now, you might notice a pattern. The monolith tends to lead its attacks. Usually, whenever the color of the monolith turns red, it hints a fireball attack. When it goes yellow, it actually shows that it's going to do the radial attack where you need to actually get away from the monolith and it'll do its attack. And whenever it shines blue, it will spawn in Maelstrom troops. Now the second stage happens, where it does this thing where it lowers the initial face of the monolith to reveal a bit of like an eye almost. And this eye has some slightly different attack patterns. The blue remains the same, it will spawn in the Maelstrom troops. However, the red changes. Instead of fireballs, it's a fire laser, or a directional laser, or however you would want to describe it, in which it blows up a straight line of things within its reach. And the yellow attack does a bit of a ground pound effect. If you're familiar with, like, I don't know, Mario or Yoshi, it does that kind of same ground pound effect with a bit of a radius explosion at the very end. But aside from that, that's basically the rest of the boss fight. As long as you keep using the poison potions or have some way of keeping it from regenerating a lot, you can deal with this boss very fast. And it's very important to deal with the regeneration, because the issue is, of course, he'll keep spawning in Maelstrom troops after they're defeated to make sure to maintain a high health. Once the monolith is defeated, it will have this cool animation effect of it going to heaven, and the Maelstrom troops notice this and tries to prevent him going to heaven because it is a sin among the Maelstrom army. Nevertheless, he will descend to heaven and will leave a portal for you. This portal will lead you to one of the many dimensions of the Into the Maelstrom mod. This dimension is probably the most important though, as it is the nexus dimension. When you first enter the nexus has a bunch of gateways or door portals or whatever you want to call them that leads you to different areas of the island. The first door portal takes you to the side island, which gives you 2 other door portals. The first door portal here takes you back to where the first portal is, and the next door takes you over to some of the traders, along with more door portals there. On this island, you'll find the bladesmith, which sells you daggers, sharpness books, and a bunch of different weapons here and there. An important trade material that you might notice within all of these are these Maelstrom cores. The Maelstrom cores comes from a bunch of the mobs that you kill, such as the Maelstrom scouts, which will drop you the basic cores, and each dimension will give you a certain core. The Azure Maelstrom core will come from the Azure dimension, and the Golden Maelstrom core will come from the Golden Cliffs dimension, and the Crimson core will come from the Crimson Castle dimension. The Gunsmith will sell you ammo cases and guns in exchange for the Maelstrom cores, along with occasional metals that can be found within some of the dimensions. Over here on this portal, it will take you to another island, which is linked to another portal, which will take you to the Nexus Saiyan. And the Nexus Saiyan has a bunch more weapons that are modeled, such as the Roman Artillery and the Elucidator. And there's a bunch of different weapons here: the Dragon Slayer, the Music Disc, Barry Bob, New World, and a couple of more weapons, and as well as the Nyan Cat armor. There are just a bunch of weapons that you can buy within this dimension that will help you on your journey. This is time to promote my Play Your Way mod pack, which will contain this mod along with many other mods as well. So go ahead and check that out later. Another gateway on the island will take you to this trader, which is the Armorer. And the armor will provide you with a straw hat, a white diamond set, speed boots, and an exo sets, and you can even get an elytra. There's also the Fade Steel set and the Elysium set. The island over to this one shows you a bit of an interesting area, which has a big tree, and in this tree you have a mage. And the mage will tell you that you have no mana and that you need to get Minotaur horns in order to really unlock your mana pool. We'll get to this when the Maelstrom Minotaur does appear, but the trade gives you a mana catalyst for a Minotaur horn. You also need to kill another one in order to get the Infernal Staff. And there's just a bunch of other staffs here and there that will help you on your adventures as well. The next and second to last thing that we'll be covering within the Nexus are the portal areas. And the portal areas will have keyholes that you need to insert obviously a key inside of it. And the way to get these keys is through the next thing that we'll cover. But each of the dimensions will be accessed through this section over here. Finally, if you look behind the island that has a bunch of the traders on, you can find another Nexus gateway. And this Nexus gateway takes you to a bit of a creepy and eerie area, which has another portal similar to that of the one that you just entered. This will take you to the Dark Nexus area. And the Dark Nexus area will have a bit of wind pushing you off to the side, so be very careful when walking on this bridge. And this entire area, there's just a simple bridge linking two floating islands within this endless void. When you approach the metal bars for the first time, a familiar face awaits you. It is in fact Herobrine. And when you go up to him, he will request that you give him ender pearls. You would have to trade him 8 ender pearls to get yourself a dimensional key, which will be used later on. However, when you do give Herobrine 8 ender pearls, he will try to make an attempt at your life. And Herobrine is essentially invulnerable. The only way to technically attack him is while he is in the process of attacking you. This will give Herobrine some clarity on your fighting skill as a warrior. And you can get a general idea as to fighting him based on the scene of me fighting him right here. Projectiles don't affect him. You can only hit him with a sword and hit him when he's attacking. After hitting him a couple times, he will proclaim that the battle is over and that you might be able to serve him as a slave. You find a bit of a common ground with him, as he would want to have you eliminate some of the Maelstrom generals by fixing some fragments into a key that unlocks the way to the dimensions. And NCT Herobrine proclaims that you can enjoy your exploration, or whatever it is that Minecrafters do. With that in mind, let's go over to the new dimension, which can be used by putting in a key that we got from the Herobrine trade into one of the pedestals. This is the Fracture Dimension. And it is a very fitting name, as the dimension consists of many different cracks in the ground, along with a very lush and beautiful environment. A lot of the animals have a bit of a bluish purplish look to them, along with the trees and a lot of the flora as well. In this area, you'll find different houses and different areas that might pique your interest. One thing that you might find within this dimension is the Executioner, which can be summoned on this pedestal right over here. And the Executioner has a wide variety of attacks, utilizing the flaming whips that he carries. Overall, the Maelstrom Executioner is nothing more than just a basic mini-boss and doesn't have any other really unique attacks or anything specifically different about him. And unfortunately, he will not drop his flaming whips, but instead he will drop a dagger. On to some of the more important structures. This is a bit of an underground labyrinth leading to the one and only Minotaur. A lot of the troops that you would find down here are the Azure troops that will give you the Azure cores, along with the basic Maelstrom troops such as the Maelstrom Scout, Mage, Warriors, etc, etc. You will also find Maelstrom Cauldrons and Floating Skulls. Do be very careful though, because this also has a bunch of areas that you might meet your unexpected demise, such as holes that simply go straight to the void. So the overall area is going to be a little bit unforgiving if you make one wrong move within the stronghold. And you'll know when you're close to the final room when the room starts to get a little bit bigger. So as you can see here, there's a little fountain here, and the room is a little expansive, almost like a hallway leading to the bigger room. The Minotaur will spawn in from the furthest back region of the big boss room. The Minotaur is a very heavy damage dealer and is very, very fast and also a little shifty. He has a similar movement to that of a skeleton, where he kind of backs away from his opponents and then charges in recklessly at certain foes. Almost all of his attacks have some sort of range to them, as it has a little of an invoker effect, where it spouts out a bit of a maelstrom dust that comes out of the ground right towards you and whoever else is within the area. And of course, he has a bit of a leaping effect along with attacks that are actually strong enough to break the surrounding area. He also has a bit of a second stage where he will have a bit of a skeletal form, as some of his skin is actually completely off of his body. And now his attacks will have a bit of a second gasp, where yes, the evoker effect will still be there, but then there's a second evoker effect that will happen afterwards, which are the little bones that drop on the ground, causing a little small explosion. He's also seen throwing his bones at you, along with leaving massive trails of bones in a wide variety of directions. The Minotaur also will spawn in skulls that will help him defeat you. When he dies, he'll drop a golden key fragment and a Maelstrom Minotaur horn. A more noticeable threat within the Maelstrom mod is the Maelstrom Illager, which will spawn in a bit of a strongholdish area with many allies alongside him. The Maelstrom Illager will summon similar troops as before. This time he'll summon a scout and a mage to fight alongside him, along with Maelstrom Cauldrons, and the Maelstrom Illager will noticeably have his shield down only when he is summoning his allies. Oh, and also he actually talks to you a little bit. What a fine being we have here and must investigate. Come join our empire as a Maelstrom zombie, die pesky specimen. After a certain time, he will start launching his own attacks. He will actually launch like a bit of a ball explosion attack, and this attack is really effective. It's capable of doing a wide variety of damage to you depending on how far away you are from the explosion, and he'll still summon in some of his minions on occasion, and he'll even chuck a bit of a fireball on occasion at you, or a maelstrom ball, along with the ability to shoot a bit of a circular blast at you. So he is a very menacing threat within the Maelstrom mod. The main downside of the Maelstrom Illager is that he cannot regenerate. So because of that weakness alone, it is easy to defeat him if you have the proper equipment. He also drops a golden key fragment. When we return back to Herobrine, he will probably give you a quote saying, "Do you have the fragments for the next key? If not, then GTFO." Luckily, we do have the key fragments from killing both of the bosses, or you could also kill two of one of the bosses and it'll give you the next fragment. So the Golden Canyon dimensional key will be obtained, and now he says, not bad, now go get some more fragments for me. Now all we're gonna do is hold out our key and then activate the next dimension, which is the Golden Canyon dimension. The Golden Canyon dimension has got to be my favorite dimension within this. Aside from one other dimension that we'll cover later that isn't quite as what you would expect from a dimension, this is definitely the coolest dimension out of all of them, as it contains massive hills and cool landscapes, along with a couple of new enemies and fights to face. Almost every mob that is spawned naturally is pretty hostile, from the fireflies to these very weird and strange swamp crawlers that spawn in very huge masses. It is an overall very hostile dimension within a civilization that is long forgotten. Occasionally you'll find little remnants of the past civilization, and as you can see, it's definitely corrupted from the Maelstrom invasion. Within this area, you can find cliffstone golems similar to that of the Azure golem, and occasionally after you kill him, he will drop exo parts. To give you an idea as to how strong this guy is, by the way, take a look at this. I also forgot to mention that a golem like this does exist within the Azure dimension, but they actually spawn naturally within the Azure dimension, rather than spawning specifically within a certain area like the cliff golem. And they don't drop really anything unique like the cliff golem does, they just drop diamonds and more of the Azure fragments. While you might think that the dungeon lies somewhere on the ground level, in fact, it got its name the Golden Cliffs for a very specific reason. The dungeon is located on a literal cliffside, and it is basically where the higher-ups live, I'd assume. The area is very reminiscent of, once again, another stronghold, but its overall interior is actually relatively unique. It keeps itself up by using stone-like pillars, and essentially has the same feel as almost like a mine shaft. And you'll know when you reach the boss room when you reach a room that looks like this. It's quite the grand stage for what you're about to face. And the boss of this area is the Statue of Nirvana, also known as the Creator's Face. The Statue of Nirvana is quite the elegant boss, as he flies around with all of his 8 arms and starts shooting random projectiles at you. The damage that they do is quite immense, as you could assume from a gold statue. He is also very hard to hit, as you'd assume, because he's flying very fast and has a higher speed than an average skeleton. He also has occasional explosions here and there, and different methods of shooting his projectiles. Luckily, he leads some of his attacks, such as a magic circle that appears on the ground before it explodes. And as a fair warning to somebody you find with this boss, it has a tendency of flying outside of its room by phasing within the walls. The Statue of Nirvana also tends to spawn in golden pillars, and the Statue of Nirvana seems to have an interesting effect whenever it's near a golden pillar, in which it will actually gain a bit of a protective shield, protecting it from any harm. As you can see, the Statue of Nirvana can even drop the Wither within 7 attacks. And if you thought this boss was a nightmare in itself, wait till you see the next stage, where it starts rampaging a lot. Starts shooting purple projectiles alongside its current yellow projectiles, and will overall just have a lot more attack power on top of his ability to easily deal with the likes of the Wither. When you finally do kill him, he turns a little purple, and now we have the Maelstrom Statue of Nirvana. He has another stage, and this is even worse than the last one. He fires projectiles very similar to that of the Shulker, but instead of levitation, it acts as a little bit of a fireball. And this is what he now can do against the Wither. Are you kidding me? And when he gets to a lower health, he does fire projectiles at a slightly faster rate, though it is a little hard to notice. When you manage to kill him, he will drop a couple of items on the ground, including a staff. He will drop the Golden Inferno Staff, which deals a whole lot of damage. The Golden Staff will have a bit of a radius attack, like a bit of a spherical explosion, that deals a lot of damage. Once you go back to Herobrine, he now has the Crimson Dimensional Key trading recipe, which you can get like so. He'll say, try taking on this dimension. I'm sure it won't be that bad. When you try to put this key into this dimensional key fragment hole, this is what happens. You'll see this red diamond appear, and that is an indication of the crimson thing. But then it turns purple. It starts exploding the nearby area, and your worst nightmares come to pass. It is a Maelstrom invasion. A massive tower will appear in the sky, and it is a bit of a crimson-y style, but as you might have expected, there is something amiss. The Maelstrom troops has invaded the nexus, and now you'll have to deal with another boss fight. It is the Maelstrom champion. It can do backflips in the air, really do a lot of damage, and it is absolutely murdering another. What the frick, dude? One thing to note with this guy is that he does have a shield. And to show you what the shield does, it blocks gun projectiles. So in order to really utilize your guns, you'd have to have him in an attacking motion in order to actually utilize such a gun. Oh, and that new Golden Inferno Staff? That's all it did. Even your new weapon has no effect against this guy's massive shield prowess. The good news is that he actually does have a weakness, and that is that if you manage to have something attacking him from behind, which of course this guy likes to strafe around his enemies, you can actually hit him in the back. Once you defeat the Maelstrom champion, what will happen is the new portal to the Crimson Kingdom will be made, and another gateway will be made to enter the top of the tower. And this is where we enter the most unique dimension that I've ever seen within a mod. Welcome to the Crimson Kingdom. The entire dimension is its own city. It's almost like this person made an entire adventure map within a Minecraft mod. The dimension has a slightly steampunk style along with a mixture of a Japanese style with some of the trees and buildings. And you kind of have to fight your way through all the way up to this tower right here, climb all the way up, cross the bridge, cross a couple of pathways, and then you get to meet what was deemed as possibly the hardest boss within this mod, which is the second out of the two bosses that were ported to the newer mod, Bosses in Mass Destruction. This boss can only be damaged by hitting it in the eye, and it has some relatively explosive attacks. As you can see, it actually is able to break through a lot of the glass and stone within this area. So you have to be relatively careful with this boss because it can do a lot of damage to your entire platform, leading with no other room to really fight in. And of course, there's a pool of lava waiting for you if you do manage to get that last layer and have to deal with this boss. At a certain health value, it will start using some unique attacks, such as throwing some slight meteors. And of course, that meteor does a whole lot of damage. He also fires off an eye laser after a certain health is lost as well. And now, here is the second stage, where it does this little weird finger thing, and then you can start to see some eye veins. Oh, and to clarify, that little finger thing that he does actually doesn't do damage per se, but instead it summons more Maelstrom troops, along with, Maelstrom troops with wings. Oh, and just to clarify, the Maelstrom healer is the thing that has wings on it. I also found that there is a alternate second gauntlet, which is pretty unique, as it comes with its own spawning animation after the first alternate gauntlet is defeated, which is basically the same as the default gauntlets. And this gauntlet in particular has a unique attack pattern where it just messes up people, as it spawns in its own end crystals for explosions and bombs, and absolutely does work to whoever decides to face this thing. When it finally dies and you get to reap the rewards, it will spawn this little like diamond in the sky, and you can go back all the way to the nexus. Apparently I flew through the portal too soon. You also get the Maelstrom key fragments, which this will lead you to, well, you'll see, but it isn't exactly the anticipated end that you may have had. As you go back into the Black Nexus, the Dark Nexus area, and give Herobrine your last key fragments of this mod, this is what will happen. It is a bit of a anticlimactic end, but he says, fantastic, you prove yourself very handy and all that, but he'll be doing the rest. He can't let us having all the fun, so he is gone. He teleports out of here, and now you're kind of left in a position where there is now like 3 key areas left, and there's nothing really much more within this mod. So, you might be wondering to yourself, why in the world would I review such a dead mod? Because at this point in time, even though the mod is really, really good, there isn't anything left within this mod to explore. However, this mod is actually actively being developed and updated. There is a massive updates in the work within this Into the Maelstrom mod. As someone has taken up the mod and decided to work with it, I mean, take a look at this. The Azure Golem. The current developer of the mod turned the Azure Golem, a very, nice creature, into a phenomenal, completely redesigned, absolute beast. of a creature with a completely overhauled, just an amazing design for a once not so revered creature per se. And they plan on doing a couple of new changes to the dimensions, such as making all of the dimensions similar to that of the Crimson Kingdom, which I don't know exactly how I feel about that per se, because on one hand I can definitely see why they did it, as the Crimson Kingdom is definitely one of the most unique dimensions by far, and more dimensions like it would be nice. Though I do already like what they have for the Fractured Dimension and the Golden Canyon Dimension. Though for the most part, I'm definitely for the change, because having a unique dimension like the Crimson Kingdom Dimension is just such an amazing thing to have in order to improve the story and to improve the overall gameplay of this mod. With that said, I would like it if they somehow incorporated some of the mobs that do spawn naturally, such as the swamp creatures and all that stuff, to still exist within the mod, but in a different form within this new area. And the creator itself actually told me that this mod in general is just a bit of a test build, and it just shows exactly how much they could possibly do within this mod. But with the mod unfinished, they're going to do a lot of work to redesign the entire thing to make it even grander with all the custom mobs and such that they have, and it's going to be very, very fun to see what they have in store. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, if you want to subscribe, and subscribe, and it beats up. I'll see you guys next video. Take care and good